We don't really want it to go there because, boy, if we start pulling samples out of my rep's hands, I just don't know if I can sustain my business here. Well, guys, it's happening, and it's happening right now. It's starting with the academic medical centers that are out there. They've raised their hand and said, listen, we need to have conflict of interest policies put in place that show our public and our patients that we do not have conflicts of interest. Samples is but one of those components, and they've gone out and say, listen, we are going to self-police our medical colleges, and the medical colleges are the ones that you really, really want to work with because they usually play a key leadership role in their geographic areas. And they're saying, through their policies, we need to eliminate the receipt of drug samples or, at a minimum, centralize it and start separating the rep from the sample. Again, very controversial, but that's their policy. So that's what they're up against. And what they've done is they've gone out and they've self-policed themselves in many of these areas. And what you will see is kind of a rating and ranking. Those that have received an A are listed over there, and come around. There's a number of non-responses. There's a number of medical schools that are still trying to get their policies in place. But as it relates to e-sampling, there's an interesting dichotomy that's taking place. You have some academic medical centers that are shifting to one end of the continuum. Johns Hopkins is one of those. We don't want to see reps. We don't want to take samples. I don't know that that's the best scenario for your organizations. And then you have others like UPMC, where a company called MedManage, which Physicians Interactive owns, was brought into University of Pittsburgh Medical Center by a pharma company to help solve this problem. Can you put a system in place that still allows my reps access to the physician and allows samples to be distributed there, but in a central manner? And that is up and operational. I'll give you kind of some screenshots of how that works. And that's been very, very, very successful. I don't know that that's the long-term answer in this particular space. It's certainly working at UPMC, and there's discussions going at some of these other organizations. But I'm convinced that going to the other end of the spectrum, and these guys have to do something. It's in their conflict of interest policy. Going to the other end of the spectrum is certainly not going to work from a marketing perspective. So UPMC, the way it works is there's a centralized sample service. The fees for pharmaceutical companies to put their products into this sample closet are really nominal. It's transactional based. To put them in there, some 3,000 providers then in Western Pennsylvania can go in and order samples. And oh, by the way, they can also and will also see sales representatives. They just can't take samples. So I think it's a win-win for industry. It's not the way things used to be, but it's certainly not. It certainly hasn't taken the policy and the rules and the regulations to the far end. And also, there's functionality that can be delivered here that can actually help increase rep access by requesting a rep or requesting certain content and certain information. So you'll see here, and this is just a sample of with some fictitious brands of what that sample closet at UPMC might look like. So as we look at digital social channels, we need to be thinking about how we operationalize sampling in light of some of these trends that I think are going to be coming, so that we can work more hand in hand and strategically with our partnerships with our large HCO organizations that are out there and the physician groups that are trying to manage a conflict of interest policy. And the other point that I want to make just around e-sampling, and this is really, we're going to get into this in greater detail in a moment, why not take sample closets for your products and put them out where physicians are going? So MedManage has established, and I'm using them as a poster child here, they've established a distribution network for samples where we can take your sample and put it out where physicians are going. Instead of having them to try to come to brand.com to get a sample, and then go over here to another brand to get a sample, and then they're chasing samples. Why not put them in a shared industry closet where they can have access to them? And oh, by the way, when they have access to them, there's also an opportunity to deliver the message. So we're emulating what's happening in the field. Very, very effective way to, I think, handle this, this particular trend that we're seeing. So the last two, and I'll be very quick here. The last two trends really have to do with kind of a culmination of those things that we've been talking about earlier. Your messaging more and more needs to be delivered in context, and we're moving to a world that's all about distribution and not destination. So gone are the large portals in the sky that are out there aggregating physician relationships. In order for them to survive, they need to start distributing their message, distributing their content, and where are they distributing it, or where should they be distributing it? Well, it's where the physicians are and where the physicians can use the information. So it's places like e-prescribing systems, electronic medical systems, or electronic health records, as well as mobile devices and reference tools that are being used at and around point of care. Those are very, very impactful places to distribute message. So just taking this first one for a moment, and this example has been used a number of times, but who does it better than Google? Who does it better than Google than serving up information in context of either a search or as you're looking for different bits and pieces of information, they're constantly serving you up things that may be relevant to what you're doing. Why can't we be doing a lot more of this inside of some of these emerging technologies like mobile devices and reference tools? A couple of quotes and trends that I saw to drive this point home is, this concept of moving from larger pieces of content into more digital bits and serving them over time. When you're delivering content on a mobile device or even around the workflow in a point of care situation, you can't get a physician for 10 minutes or 20 minutes to have them, a KOL present to them. It needs to be served up in very, very smaller bites. And you see, what is happening here with the various industries, everything from newspapers to books to music, videos. There's this trend, and pharmaceutical marketing to HCPs is no different. I would argue that it's certainly a little bit behind the curves that we're seeing here. But the quote that was on the first slide that I showed in this section, talking about the students saying, hey, if it's important enough, it will find me.